I don't know. It's got peach mango. That's all I know.
That,
It's got
that works.
crystal lights. I don't know about the
That,
electrolytes, but it does have crystal lights. All
that
right.
works too.
We're back. It's Thursday afternoon. Can I tell you? It's 79 degrees. Not a
What?
cloud in the sky here in Atlanta.
I think we're high at 60 something right now, maybe 61. Oh, okay. Well, this is easy. That's well, actually,
What has been? Is he calling us old friends? Is that
no.
what's going on
Hello.
here?
Yeah, right. Hola. No, hello, amigos of the
Entertainment?
entertainment culture.
I like that.
I want to
I'm
say
good.
that's Portuguese, not Spanish.
I'm good with it either way. So
Sven, if I'm wrong or right, let us know. I'm saying Portuguese.
you may be right. I may be crazy.
Oh wow, I'm
No,
not
we're
even
not.
gonna say the next line of this.
Yeah, the lunatic thing. Nah, we're not
Yeah.
going there. All right. All right, but seriously, we're glad to be back. We're glad we survived last week. That was a long one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say so. Plan for two, make it three.
Isn't that what Ernie, what's his face for the Cubs said?
Ernie
Let's
Banks.
play 3.5. Yeah, something like that.
Exactly. Let's hello, friends of cultivated entertainment. Is it Portuguese or Spanish?
I don't
I
know.
thought it was Portuguese.
I'm still
Come
stuck
on.
on the cultivated entertainment. I like that. Sounds pretty good. Kind of
Yeah.
highbrow.
I'm about to
Just
say not
progressive.
entirely true, but pretty
I didn't
good.
say it was true. It just sounded good.
Yeah.
3.5. Yes, Alan, we know.
Thanks, Alan.
3.5. We
I know. We'll
remember.
get it. We'll straighten out our corporate narrative and add that in.
Right. That'll take another
Portuguese.
hour though. So I don't know.
Make it 4.5. Thank you. It was Portuguese. Okay, good.
All right. So it was a great reveal last week. We've heard nothing but really positives, which is surprising because it was 3.5 hours. But
No.
people thought it moved well. We were shuffling people in and out, getting their awards in, getting a little convo in between. But there was a problem, and we're going to rectify some of that today
Mm-hmm.
because we announced all 16, but we didn't get a chance to talk to all 16. So we thought we'd take a few minutes off the top of the show to do some of that, at least two out of the three. We're hoping.
Yeah.
I know we're at least going to do one out of the three because I see John Bruno in the green room there. So he's the only one there right now. That means we're getting to talk to pros. And PG, the venerable PG, we're going to refresh us as to why pros made this year's list.
All right. So actually, before we get going, we should do a shout out too.
So you want to do that shout out first? Okay.
Yeah, let's start with that, just because I think it's important that people hear it right away. Obviously, everyone's acquainted with what's going on globally now and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I wanted to do a particular shout out to Oracle and SAP, and a special one, which I'll mention briefly right after that, because both companies have publicly announced that they are going to stop business operations and sales in Russia. And they're basically trying to help strangle the Russian economy at this point to start putting the pressure on Putin to end this thing ASAP. Um, both companies have publicly announced it. It's to me it was great to hear it, and I hope other companies will follow suit to do so. The other side of this is I want to do a special shout out to Creatio, who, as you know, is not only a watch list winner, but Creatio is a company that was founded and effectively born and raised in Kiev and Ukraine. I spent several years going to Ukraine, Kiev, for various events that that at the time BPM Online, which was their prior name, were holding. Kiev is a beautiful city. It's got amazing people, incredible landmarks, incredible food, incredible culture, real history. You can see the history of the city, and the people themselves are showing what you even saw then, which is how resilient human beings they really are. Creatio, of course, has a lot of their loved ones and still a significant amount of staff in Ukraine. All of them have, let's say, been moved to safety. And I'm not saying anything beyond that. Creatio is very active. Catherine Kostareva, who is an award-winning CEO, has won multiple Women in Leadership awards over the last several years, and is an outstanding person, someone I've known really, I'm very close to for a long time. Put out a statement on support of Ukraine, and I would highly recommend you go to LinkedIn and take a look at it. I already shared it, but I'll reshare it again on LinkedIn if people want to go to my site and see what it is. But the other thing I highly recommend, and I know John, the gentleman coming on, and we'll use this as a segue in. John, the gentleman coming on, John Bruno, who's the VP of Strategy at Pros, has also publicly donated, and he's also been urging people to donate in support of Ukraine and its people. So to all the people who are doing that, not only kudos, but please continue to not only donate, but to share and recommend and make public statements, and in any way that you can, turn the screws on Russia and get this thing ended. And we all remain in support of the Ukrainian people. So with that, I will segue to what John's doing here. Pros, as you know, was one of the watch list winners, and I did outline it last week why. But ultimately, look, it's almost a simple one with them. They are a market dominant company. Their historic market, which has been pricing optimization, they own something like 80% of it. In the airline industry, they own something like 95% of it. They have an extraordinary corporate culture, one of the best I've ever seen in my life. Thank you, Christy. One of the best I've ever seen in my life. And their actual offering is not really their CPQ offering or their pricing optimization offering. It's an AI platform that is arguably, thank you, Thomas, that is arguably one of the best AI platforms, machine learning platforms I've ever seen, far ahead of its time when I first saw it. Now the times are starting to catch up to what I saw then, and they have continued to advance beyond that. It's amazing, and they are a truly amazing company, and one I'm proud to know and to call friend, really. And there he is. Also, the paradigm, when he was a boy, when he was about 11, he went to work for Forrester, and as an analyst, and he was literally the best young analyst I had ever met, and that still holds to this day. So, and now he's a
12.
He's grown up. He's 14, as you can see. He's just good at beards, and he is an amazing. Are you still VP of Strategy, by the way?
I am, yeah.
Okay, still VP of Strategy at Pros, and he is again brilliant young strategist. Well, take away young, he's just a brilliant strategist. Doesn't matter what age he is at this point.
I'm sprouting a few more grays.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, unlike me, where you don't have to pick through it to find it, right? In your case, you literally have to shave your beard and then sit there and separate all the hairs out to find a gray hair somewhere.
I'm just cognizant of my angles. Like I could, yeah.
Well, that's just a sign of wisdom as you grow older. So welcome, John, and congratulations too on winning the CRM Watchlist 2022, which, as you know, is by far the hardest thing anyone's ever done. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
having an award,
having known both of you for as long as I have, in being on the kind of analyst trails, I've heard all the stories about the CRM watch list. I've heard about the lengthy submissions. So I've heard about it from that standpoint. I've seen it from this standpoint, and knowing all the work that all these companies put into their submissions, it really means a lot to us to be recognized as a CRM watch list winner.
Have you heard by any chance that I actually did have another judge, and this is going to be a historic reference. See how many people even know it. But the other judge was Torquemada.
I didn't know.
Oh, you know
Really?
who he is? You know who that is? He was the torturer for the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh,
Anybody
Right.
who saw History of the World Part 1 would have known that.
Well, actually, anybody who read a history book would have probably known that on
Most
the Spanish
people
Inquisition.
have not done
Right.
that.
Right, I know. That's why I said it would be a historical reference. I wonder how many people will get it. But he was my other judge, Torquemada, the bastion of the Spanish Inquisition torture. So it was really good. So why don't you talk a little bit about what Pros is up to? You know, take the next couple of minutes and do that so people can
yeah,
understand it
absolutely.
better.
So at Pros, over the last couple of years, we've taken a good hard look in the mirror, right? The world has evolved at rates that I don't think any of us would have expected. I mean, when we're writing and kind of thinking about things and being as hyperbolic as we can, we probably would have said it. But realistically speaking, I don't think many of us had expected the world to change in the ways that it did over the past couple of years. Now, in the spaces that we operate in, they're super dynamic. So you mentioned the airline part of the business, and we also serve a lot of B2B companies. And if you look at the airline side of the business, they have been largely disrupted by intermediaries, these aggregators of sorts, these meta search engines as well. And we're seeing airlines look to bring more kind of power and more control over the customer relationship back into their own first party experiences. Now, when you look at the B2B side of our business, we're dealing with a lot of organizations that are dealing with legacy customer relationships that have been very, very difficult to manifest themselves in today's digital technology. There's just too much of a data problem. And so at a high level, Pros's mission and our vision is to optimize every shopping and selling experience, no matter where the buyer might be, because at the end of the day, the buyer is going to determine where they want to engage. We're just hoping that we can help our customers help augment and improve those experiences, provide more context, more consistency, more speed, really allow buyers to have more confidence and feel better about the purchasing decisions that they're making. And so we leverage, our Pros platform. Of course, it's geared towards those selling experiences, but it's also a highly flexible and extensible platform that our customers can take and tune to their specific business needs. And I think you talked about that a little early on from the standpoint of AI, and something we really pride ourselves in.
Well, one last question to that before you go. One of the things that's blown me away about your AI is how advanced it is, and arguably you could literally do anything you want with it. I mean, you could move to an area that has to do with entertainment if you wanted to, and do something with it. It's that good, and it's that flexible. But you chose commerce right now. Okay, the kind of the broader picture commerce. Why? And then let's leave it there.
Yeah, it's a great question. So on the one hand, it's part of our pedigree. Right? We grew up in helping companies like Southwest Airlines really optimize their revenue management strategies. And so it's an area that we know really, really, really well. But looking at today's world, there's so much really behavioral differences that are taking place. So in a typical B2B capacity, you'd expect a salesperson to be the steward of that relationship. And, we've historically relied on really good salespeople to leverage really good gut instincts in order for businesses to be successful. Well, buyers are a lot more intelligent these days. They're doing a lot more research, and the power dynamic has really shifted almost entirely. And so what we're trying to do is leverage the domain area that we have, what we believe a particular expertise in, and start to provide more context and not necessarily more power back to the salesperson, but really elevate their stature in the overall buying process. And we have to couple that with the fact that more B2B buyers today, well, they're looking younger than me now, right? And so they're increasingly starting and going through their buying journey online. And
what are they buying? Bottles?
They're buying everything.
No, I mean bottles with formula.
Yeah.
I mean, they look younger than you.
Yeah. Well, yes, there probably are. And but the crazy thing is that they don't want to work with people, and you can't just give them a list price. You can't gut check that. You have to deliver them something that they feel is relevant, that they feel is reasonable, and in line with their expectations. So getting something right in that very first interaction has become so much more important than it's ever been. Patience is at an all-time low. Getting it right quickly is at an all-time high.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. And I'm really congratulations.
Absolutely.
Also, if you happen to, and when I say this, I'm not kidding. If you happen to know any analysts young analysts who are like roughly the age you were when you broke into Forrester and are kind of like you, I literally would like to meet them. I'm not joking about that either. If you know them, please introduce me, because I'm looking for somebody, and you've always been and will continue to be my paradigm for it. So I'm counting on you to find your younger version of a doppelganger.
Yeah, I've got a few folks I can probably tip you off to. Obviously, I know the folks over at Forrester quite well, given my time there. But there are a few folks that I think you'd really enjoy meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir, and thank you again. We really
thank you both.
it.
All right,
one, my friend.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it. So we will move on, because before we bring our guest on, you met him about 6 months ago. This is a bit of a catch up, an update. Salesforce Plus launched back in summer, and we're going to get an update from Colin Fleming. But before we do that, a couple of save the dates here. Let me pop this up here. Okay, so you realize it's already March and we haven't done a watch party yet?
What was that thing we did 2 weeks ago? No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, we did something 2 weeks ago?
No.
All right. So this year, the very first CRM Playaz watch party will be Tuesday, March 15th for the Adobe Summit opening keynote. You know how we do this. We watch, you watch, we comment in real time, you comment in real time. We just, whatever comes to mind, we kind of let it all out. It's a nice communal way of sharing what we think.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing.
And I guess we'll be following Shantanu Narayan's keynote, CEO of Adobe.
A lot of people.
That's a keynote. John Donahoe, former CEO of ServiceNow, by the way. Now
and eBay.
CEO of Nike. That's right, and eBay.
Nike, right? And ServiceNow. So he went from eBay to ServiceNow to Nike.
Yeah, he was always a consumer-focused CEO. That was his thing. So he was better suited at Nike. I mean, he wasn't bad at ServiceNow by any means, but he's basically happy where he is. Let's just say.
I like Ryan Reynolds.
I was about to say that. So he's a top experience expert.
Well, and then there's also Alex and Felix, who's got a very nice smile there.
Yeah, that's not showing up. The names aren't showing up. But
I know
another top experience expert. So I mean, but you know what?
Speed experience expert.
Yeah, that's sure. And he's a top. Actually, he is a pretty savvy business guy. Ryan Reynolds.
Well, you know, they usually have somebody from the entertainment world as part of their keynotes. So,
what's the gin that he runs now? He has a gin and he has cricket and what's the name of that gin?
I have no idea.
I can't think of it. Ryan Reynolds owns like all kinds of business entities, so he would be interesting just from that level. But of course, he also just is an incredible actor. I just love him.
He's funny and he doesn't age.
Well,
the guy looks the exact same.
I know.
It's amazing.
It's
all right.
Astounding. All right.
So that's March 15th.
Right.
March 15th. And we will also have an Adobe executive join us directly following the keynote. And what do we call it? Our post-game convo kind of thing.
Post-game convo. And we will have a small group of Aviator. Thank you, Christy. I could not think of it. Thank you. Right. He's the free guy. Oh, that means they probably didn't get him with no fee for him. we're going to have a small group we'll have our players in residence, of course, to discuss their perspective. And then we'll have a small group of analysts, names TBD, who will also discuss their perspectives. Mint, not cricket, mint. Okay. Thank you. Thank God we have knowledgeable people on our side there.
We need them. All right.
Yes, we do.
And then one more thing. Coming up at the end of the month, 4 weeks from today. We haven't done an executive roundtable this year. What have we done this year? Have we done anything?
Nothing much. Nope.
Jeez.
We get on, we say, hi, I'm Brent Leary, hi, I'm Paul Green, we're the CRM Playaz, and then something happens and then we leave. Pretty much it.
Pretty much sums up the year so far.
Pretty much sums
All
up
right,
12 years.
So we're going to do some more work then. We're doing our very first CRM Playaz executive roundtable conversation. It's going to be on CDP. Some people said, does that mean you guys are going to be changing your name to the CDP Playaz? Absolutely not. Not doing that.
So, that would be hysterical and definitely
Hysterically
not
bad.
Yes.
Not doing that. But we are going to have a great conversation. Be on the lookout. We're starting to finalize the panel. The folks that we already have, really excited about it. But we're going to wait and just roll out the whole squad all at once.
The CDP squad. That's like
Wow.
the Suicide Squad.
Well, we just had Ryan Reynolds. Wasn't he part of that? No, he's Deadpool.
I don't know. No.
He was Deadpool.
What was Margot Robbie was part of that one.
Yeah. Wasn't Will Smith in the first one? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I literally don't remember.
None of those people will be part of that panel, by the way. Just thought we'd say that. But March 15th, March 31st. And you can also remember March 25th for a completely different reason.
Can I tell people why they can remember?
Not really.
You don't want me to tell you?
No,
well,
that's
I'll
just a
say it
reminder of just how old I'm getting. So,
well, okay, now I can say it since you just said it, basically. That's Brent's birthday.
I do take cash or check, Venmo.
You're taking checks? Are you crazy?
Somebody's got to do it. All right, let's move forward.
He only takes
got a really
cash
good guest
and crypto.
We have a really good guest that we'd love to bring on. But before we do, when you look at this, what is your first word that comes to mind when you see this page? I got mine. I'm just curious if it's the same as yours.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I know where it's coming from. So immediately, right, it goes to.
Okay.
So I don't want it. No, that would be like fake.
Okay, then I'll just say it because it wasn't fake when I saw.
No,
so when I went to this, when I saw this last night, the first thing that came to mind is, am I on Netflix?
Right.
It really looks like, the original Netflix series gets the big highlight, and then they have, other. Let me see. I think I have this. Yeah, and then you widen out a bit, and you see featured episodes. So you got the full screen for the main feature, then you got the little featured episodes thing. I felt like I was like watching my TV. Now, you tell me, was that anything like you felt when you saw this?
Yeah, no, it's exactly what I felt, but I also know where it was coming from. So,
okay.
Right.
All right.
But the thing is, and I will say this, it's come a long way.
Oh, wait a minute. That's a good birthday suggestion for me, by the way. Just saying. Alan knows exactly what he's talking about there. And yes, Thomas, Zell is fine. I'll take Zell. All right. But anyway, so we are kind of warming this all up because six-ish months ago, Salesforce Plus rolled out. Now, some people were calling it the Netflix for business. I know the venerable Paul Greenberg had a bit of an issue with that.
I still do, even if it looks like Netflix.
Okay. But we are both surprised and pleasantly surprised to
Yes.
see a company in our industry like Salesforce start thinking, and at least it felt like us thinking and acting a bit of like a broadcast, like our own network, like the old school television, but updated kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so we were like, man, can we get somebody on from Salesforce Plus to talk about this with us? Since it was just literally, I think we found out about it on a Tuesday,
Exactly. Tuesday.
and we were lucky enough by Thursday, just 2 days later, to do a show and have Colin Fleming, who was one of the leaders, if not the leaders, in bringing this thing to life for Salesforce. We had a really great conversation. We had a lot of questions. He had a lot of answers. And we thought, with it being about 6 months down the road, it would be great to bring him back, see how things are going, and maybe ask a couple of additional questions or two. So with that in mind, welcome back, Colin.
Hey,
Hey,
how you doing,
Paul,
man?
hey, Brent, how's it going? Good to see y'all.
Same. And congrats
see
on
you.
your promotion.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. The first thing I saw on LinkedIn was like, there's an E where there was an S before. So that's
The letter has changed my life. I'm a different person now.
Wait a minute. You said
Your
y'all.
eyes
Are you from the South?
I'm not from the South. No,
Where'd the y'all come from? That was interesting.
it's just part of the for vocabulary, I guess. I don't know. Just kind of random.
No,
Just kind
you know what? I live in Virginia, and every now and then I use it. I only use it in writing, though. I don't use it in speaking. But
Yeah.
same thing. Just pick it up.
Look at this. We got questions already coming in from one of our player in residences. I like to call them.
You got to be very
Golden
careful
smile.
because if they're not, Anand might sue you on their behalf.
exactly.
Yeah. Are you giving your people IMDb credits already?
No, I think they signed waivers. We haven't got to that point, Anand, but it's a good question.
All right. So it's been about 6 months. Just off the top, high level view, how things gone, what things have gone the way you thought, and maybe what things have gone differently than you thought.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me back on. It feels like it was just yesterday, but you're right. It was 6 months ago. And we've been really pleasantly surprised with Salesforce Plus. Of course, we had a great forcing function of our Dreamforce conference to launch this. I think we talked about it before. This was our Hamilton moment is the like message we were using, right? This was a good opportunity to announce it there. And since that point, first off, we were blown away with how it performed for our event audience, if you will. And you remember a couple kind of key sound bites I left you with before that I think is important to bring together, which is it's like Netflix and Peloton come together for business to business software, right? That was our sort of mantra, if you will. And I think that vision has borne true, and we're really excited about that. So the Peloton side of it, the live experiences we had greater registration for Dreamforce than ever before in the middle of a pandemic. And it was just really great to see the pickup and the overall viewership there. So really thrilled with that side. And then you showed, it was quite the warm up, I should say, by the way, Brent. But you showed some of the series that we've been putting together. We have 11 original series in production, mostly produced in-house at Salesforce, but also with partners as well. And you mentioned Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. We just announced just this week our partnership with the Pivot podcast to be broadcasting that on Salesforce Plus, which we're really excited about.
So is that like a syndicated thing, or are they going to do anything custom for Salesforce Plus?
So it's a good question. It's like syndication with a twist. So it's a podcast, so it's audio, but we're actually streaming the video. So we're taking segments of it, video segments, and have an exclusive to broadcast them for a couple of days before they get released to the broader public. And opportunities to kind of bring the personalities of Kara and Scott, which are quite large, in more of a video setting, which we thought really added to the experience itself. So the first 2 episodes are live on Salesforce Plus now. If you go check it out,
I watched them.
We're pretty excited.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
So I think that's the major thing. Original series, lots of production. 11 of them in production. We're blown away with the attendance and viewership of these things. Not only are people watching them once, but they're coming back multiple times, which was our big question mark, and that's borne true. And so we're excited.
So to Brent's point, so what were the things that you just saw, let's say in early stream, because you're not even midstream yet, right? In early stream, they said, you know what, it was a good idea initially, but we think we're going to redirect a bit. What are the things that you ended up going from to?
That's a good question. I mean, you mentioned early stream. We're still very much learning, right?
I know.
So I think a couple things. We were really surprised at how, Dreamforce historically for us has been a moment in time, right? It's 3 days in San Francisco. We're all lost amongst the Moscone Center. It's all great. But what we're seeing now is Dreamforce has been a 6-month endeavor. We see people coming back very frequently to catch up on things they missed at Dreamforce or rewatch certain episodes and things like this. So that was a surprise to us. So I think as you'll see going forward, we'll still do a big Dreamforce moment, of course, but you'll see us making that more of a Dreamforce season, if you will. And we think that's really interesting. So that was a bit of a surprise. We got more interest from consumer world publications and media organizations than we expected to, frankly. Like the fact that we're working with Vox and Fortune and these organizations to produce this incredible content wasn't on the cards for the first 6 months, I'll be honest with you. We thought we'd produce a couple things and learn from it and keep developing, but the interest inbound has been really phenomenal. So that's been really great. And, but of course we're learning all the time. I think we're starting to publish series that were outside. We talked a little bit about when we first chatted about how we're going to be doing role-based content. So we're going to be building content for heads of service and heads of sales and heads of marketing, things like this. And we're doing exactly that. But the opportunity to build content around ecopreneurs, highlighting these incredible individuals, really these entrepreneurs doing something really interesting with ecology. I didn't expect it to be there yet, I think, to be honest with you. Stuff like that's been really fascinating. But overall, we're off to a good start and we're pretty pleased.
Well, to that specific point, what'd you call it? The ecopreneurs?
Ecopreneurs.
That actually has a lot of... that would be a lot of B2C, meaning individual consumer-based interest.
Right.
It would be like, I'm really not comparing the two here. I'm just sort of categorically, broadly doing it. It would be like the interest people have in watching Shark Tank, meaning it's a business thing, but it's people with personalities and interests that are interesting and everyone rooting for the entrepreneur, but even though they're being ripped off royally. But at the same time, what you're doing there has that kind of individual interest, not like, oh, our business will learn from this. It's like an individual is going to learn from it too, and they're going to be excited by it. And you guys, because your production values are obviously constantly improving and getting better, it could actually be a big public TV show in the old school sense of the word, even though it's being broadcast in a new format. And it's got that kind of possibility. I mean, all those things do. And I'm fascinated by the fact that you brought that one. When I first saw it, I thought, wow, this is a big shift for what you originally had said. Because if you remember original discussion, you were talking about focused on Salesforce content, which it still is. I mean, but you broaden the concept to actually pretty much what makes Salesforce the company it is, which is highly cultural, right? You're bringing in culture, right? And you're really doing it in a way that resonates with people, and that's tremendous, really.
Well, thank you for that. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. I think one of the things that we've been sort of challenging ourselves initially was, why wouldn't we be able to produce content that could go win an Emmy?
Right.
Why wouldn't we produce content that couldn't be on Netflix or something to this effect? I think it's just in the same way Dreamforce isn't your normal CRM conference, right? And so I think that mantra has really driven us in our vision, and we're still learning lessons. We like a lot of the stuff we're producing. We've retired series already too. We think about this much like a pilot season, right? So we produced a series during the middle of the pandemic or the early stages of the pandemic called Leading Through Change. And that was a weekly series that we did that actually ended up winning us Content Marketer of the Year award this past year, which is not something I expected to be doing. And you know what? It came time where we had moved on. We didn't need we didn't need to be having these conversations around how we're going to survive through the pandemic. The pandemic's becoming an endemic. So we took our most popular series and we stopped producing it. And it's still available. You can catch up on all the killer episodes that we've had. We produced 74 episodes. We expected
God.
We expected to do 2.
74.
We did 74. But the world has moved on, and that's okay. That's the pace of media. That is the pace of being a media-like organization, and that's the world that's the decision we had to make.
One of the things I really appreciated about this, there are shows that are geared specifically to the underrepresented audience. But then there's also shows that are definitely based on a certain theme, but interspersed into those episodes are folks that are underrepresented.
Yeah.
So you have shows like I watched a number of the Trailblazer episodes. Really great. I mean, you could watch that on TV and it would fit completely in. The way it was shot, the way it was brought together, the story it told, definitely television production quality. But like I said, just for example, the one that Paul was talking about around, kind of the sustainability and dealing in, I think it's, let me see if I could find that slide. Yeah, the equapreneurs.
Right.
The one episode I'd watched was of this young Black CEO who his business was on making these older buildings safer and more eco-friendly. And I thought that was so cool to see him talking about this instead of him talking about being a Black CEO. How much intent was there to make sure that Salesforce Plus represented those kinds of stories in that kind of context?
Super intentional. I think Salesforce is, and you, both of you know this, Salesforce has always been a values-driven organization.
Yep.
Our core values are trust, customer success, innovation, equality, and sustainability. And it was important that when we embarked upon this journey, that those values shone through in a really, really bright way. And so you mentioned the Trailblazer series. 5 Trailblazers we followed through in the first season. I think 3 are announced, 3 are launched. You'll see 2 more coming. All Black. Very much focused on telling the story in a authentic way. And so what was really important for this, our crew was mostly majority Black as well. We were very intentional about the way we thought about telling the narratives. One of the things that we learned, just to be very transparent, one of the things we learned along the way was a lot of the early content we thought about in representing underrepresented minorities was we weren't as authentic as we could have been. I think we were brave in telling the stories, but sometimes they were being saved or there was some other example. I think we try to do this in the most authentic way possible. Lots of conversations amongst the organizations with our Office of Equality, and they're trying to be intentional. We didn't get it perfect, and we still haven't got it perfect yet. But we're willing to put ourselves out there and learn lessons along the way. And most important thing for Salesforce is, and from a brand perspective, is ensuring that we're walking the talk of our values. And you saw that with our television commercial we played during the Super Bowl and things like that, just to show up in the way that shows up, that we are being authentic to our values. And that's the most important thing for us.
So let me ask you a sort of a different track, which goes to the kind of the production of all these things. I mean, obviously they look, what the various show named Netflix-ish things look very, they're beautiful, really. They're gorgeous. It's interesting with the Ecopreneurs, for example, though, I had a distinct feeling of National Geographic. All right. And I was wondering how conscious that is, because, I don't think it would be bad, like, to consciously do that. The thing, and the reason I'm bringing it up is that it's interesting. When I was writing, CRM at the Speed of Light all the way back many, many years ago, I had to make some decisions on how I wanted to get it done. Did I want a big publisher? Did I want a small publisher? Did I want to self-produce, whatever? And I went with the big publisher. Why? They didn't know a thing about CRM, but it was McGraw-Hill. But they were McGraw-Hill, and they would validate it. And that was one thing. And then I noticed I would talk to all these people who were like leaders, and when social was pretty new. And almost every one of them, when I say, what are your aspirations? They would go, I want to write a book. And again, be published by a traditional publisher, right? And ultimately, the equations we tend to make are with traditional television generally. And we're looking at it through that lens, in fact, as to the quality and level. And ultimately, that paradigm will shift, but not now. It hasn't shifted yet. Now, National Geographic TV, even though it's digital, for the most part, is still very much a traditional TV in format and the way they operate, but it's highly well respected.
Right.
And, and I looked at the word series, for example, on Ecopreneurs, and I thought that's the same font, right? So, I mean, they're little things, right? They're little things, but they're meaningful in that you're triggering response. And I'm wondering how, you don't have to respond particularly to that one. I just sort of wondering how you think about those smaller things that go to having impact, or is it just purely content driven, not production driven at all?
Yeah. So a couple things come to mind. I think we think about marketing very different than most enterprise software companies. We try to, I think there's been a hall pass for B2B companies, business to boring, it seems like. And for some reason,
business to boring. That's great. I had never
for
heard
some
that.
reason, the bar is lowered for enterprise software companies or B2B companies, that the marketing doesn't have to be as good. And we don't subscribe to that. And so this is what enterprise software looks like now. In our opinion, that the people that are watching National Geographic or Netflix or doing Peloton in the morning are the same people that are buying software. Right. And so why not meet them in that environment and help them?
Absolutely.
They're inspired by stories the same way a consumer is. And so I think series shows and series like we've been producing, we're a business. We have to be thinking about how do we generate attention and awareness and subscribers to move them down the funnel, right? That we're not hiding the fact here, but we're gonna entertain you along the way, and we're gonna help teach you something. We're gonna help you inspire you along the way. And for me, that's the most interesting thing and how we measure series, or are people coming back to watch the second episode? Are people, sharing this amongst their audience? Are they saving it in their My List? Things like that are really important for us. And, I think what you're seeing in the platform now is just the beginning of what our vision is.
Are you starting to see any way that the company builds relationships with customers? Are you starting to see any impact based on kind of some of the things you talked about and the kind of data that you're able to collect that may be a little bit different than you had in the past? Are you starting to see any of that change the way that you engage your audience?
We've been able to capture interest a little earlier than we would have thought. When you think this content is pretty top of the funnel, right? We're talking about Ecopreneurs and Ukraine and Elon Musk's SEC journey, things like this. So I think, I think if we've been able to identify you, Brent, that you went and watched something around our Think Beyond the Quota series, and you're interested in sales, or you're watching Connections, you might be intrigued by something in marketing. We can identify interest, and less about contacting you right away, but put you on a journey that informs you and inspires you along the way, that is relevant to you. For me, that's the most important thing in a world without cookies that we're heading into, in a world where we have to be more thoughtful about the marketing that we do. How do we ensure that you are sending us the most relevant signals in the most authentic and humble way, to ensure that the content we do send you is as helpful as it possibly can be? For me, that's the biggest thing that we've been able to undergo, is we're not sending more messages. We're not delivering more campaigns or creative or anything like this. It's just making it more relevant for our people that are in our subscriber base and our audience. And I think that's really what we're learning how to sort of activate these days.
So when you're, well, actually, let me go to something else for a second. I promised you last time that I would be badgering you on something in particular, right? So I have to do that. Sure. So one of the things that, of course, you've always heard Brent and me kind of both promote and actually try to do is effectively getting audience participation. I scared them away. Your camera went completely blank when no, that was funny. It's actually funny. I always thought it would be like the old end of night things that popped on the screen. You guys aren't quite old enough to remember those. They look like what the Gilmore Gang does. So those things, right? So anyway, so was audience participation directly, and you at the time said, well, right now we're early, so we're focused pretty much on content. And I promised you that I would badger you on this issue.
Yeah.
So I consider yourself rebadgered. And where are you on trying to get that kind of deeper engagement with the actual audiences who are viewing rather than just viewing?
I remember the badgering. I don't exactly remember my response, but I'll tell you what
Your response was, I wouldn't like your answer. That's what you said.
Fair enough. So a couple of things. One is we're not going to rebuild Zoom. We're not going to rebuild technologies that are currently world class. We're not going to rebuild Slack. We acquired Slack. So you'll start to see us very thoughtfully integrate some of our technology in ways that helps us do that. So Slack is clearly the obvious one. And so that's a little farther down the roadmap, frankly. You'll see that at Dreamforce this upcoming year, I hope. But I think what we're seeing is there's an opportunity to engage in a two-way dialogue during our events pretty materially. So we had lots of great discussion during Dreamforce, lots of interesting commentary during Dreamforce that we would not have captured in an in-person setting, right? We had 177 different countries view Dreamforce this year.
Jeez,
that is more than double anything we've ever seen. And so the opportunity to bring a more global audience into this world is something really fascinating for us in terms of just opening up the aperture of what a CRM audience looks like, right? And I think that's really fascinating. So that's something we're watching very closely. And also bringing things more globally, like, how do we localize this to be able to do this in our key markets that don't speak English, of course. And so things like that are very much part of our top of mind today. And we're watching, Peloton's evolving, Netflix is evolving, our inspirations are helping kind of paint the picture for what engagement looks like in the future. And we're watching very attentively.
Yeah, well, I'll continue to badge you for that, but that's
great.
No, you're well on the way. Look, ultimately, you have with Slack, especially, you have a tool that can just be amazing in the context of what you're doing now. It's already an amazing tool. And I wasn't a Slack. I didn't even like Slack for a long time.
But you do now, right, Paul?
No, I do. I actually really do. I grew. It sort of grew on me a great deal, and now I'm seeing it. I use it when I need to use it. I don't make a point of using it, but there's many times that I do use it because it's available and important, and I see the benefit. But that's, that said, I just see its value. The Salesforce Plus is amazing. So also on the production side, so because this is something obviously, Brent and I are always concerned with on a much smaller scale, but nonetheless always concerned about, which is what teams of people, what kind of people are making decisions on, all right, for this show, we want to produce this kind of environment. So we want to use this kind of lighting, this kind of camera, this kind of mic, this kind of, who's making those decisions? What's the thinking sort of generally behind them? And how quickly do you actually have to affect those decisions once you've decided to say, again, I really love the Ecopreneurs thing, so I'm going to stop. I'll use that as the example. You came up with the idea of the program and the show. What went into the production side?
Well, I think we discussed last time we chatted that we've actually hired some folks that are pretty experienced from ABC News and CBS and things like that really helped us shape what a production reality. And we've always had a pretty awesome production team inside Salesforce. If you look at Dreamforce and like this, we're pretty proud of the work that we put out. But the ability and the requirement to move much more quickly in this world has definitely risen to the surface. So how do we do that? Well, a couple things. One is hiring the right people to help guide those conversations. Two is by introducing a lot of variety into the programming that we bring forth. So it's really important that we don't just end up with the same talking head examples across every show, right? But you'll see if you watch Ecopreneurs versus Trailblazer, which is more of a lifestyle type of thing, versus Think Beyond the Quota, things like this, they do have variety, and that was very intentional. Each show we put together a kind of a mood board like thing that we do in front of it. That's like, here's how we want this to feel. Here's the personality. So for example, you watch Think Beyond the Quota, it's got a lot of motion graphics and texture to it. Trailblazer is more straight to camera, lifestyle, kind of documentary style, if you will. Ecopreneurs, which is actually co-produced with the Fortune Brand Studio, which has been a really awesome experience, has brought more of a journalism style environment to it, which is not something
60 minutes.
Exactly. So it's not something we'd really done there. You'll see some more interesting stuff that we're going to be doing in immersive XR based studios, which are more augmented reality stuff in the near future, which is pretty cool. So we built a pretty robust studio in one of our facilities here that allows us to do Mandalorian style green screen work, which allows us to move much more quickly too, and less expensively too, by the way. So that's fascinating. So you're going to keep seeing variety, but really expertise, variety are two things that we really focus on. And then what helps us tell the story, right? What is the right approach that helps us tell the story? And from that, and you might see things change. You might see in season 2 of a series that we might change it all together. I think we're still figuring out what we want to do there.
Well, one of our folks has a really important question. Yeah.
well, no,
Paul's setup is already better than yours, Brandon. He's got a Shure mic there. He's got quite the depth in the camera. So.
No, let me tell you something. What he was saying, what Scott was asking, that actually does exist. So actually, what we're doing is trying to get intelligence on how to do this.
Happy to consult offline with you too.
No, yeah.
I think Salesforce's budget might be slightly larger than yours, however. So
yeah, no, let's say the concepts are very different, but at the same time, we will be announcing something in a few weeks that will be related to a broadcast network. I'll leave it at that. We're not going to be competing with you, though. We're literally not competing with you, right? Because we would lose. No, we would lose. We would lose that fight, right? So,
we just found out we have a VC.
Oh, good to know. Thank you for telling us. And now we're going to have to
going well.
To them.
I'll tell Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway they have some new competition.
Nobody could. Their personalities are so gigantic you can't possibly come close to that.
It sucks the air out of the room.
I'm amazed they're able to be in the same room, in effect. Right?
Well, the good news is they're generally not.
Thank God. Yeah. The same planet actually is pretty much the way you have to think there. Exactly. You have to do this one from the Earth and one from the moon, right?
I did have a question. Are the marketers, like the marketing side, are they getting anxious to kind of leverage the things that you have put together and the engagement you're starting to form? Are they starting to be like, hey, when can we do what we do?
Yes. Yes. We started with a plan for 6 original series this past year in 2021. We ended up producing 11. And I have a list that I'm prioritizing against of 27 show ideas right now that adds to it every day. So of course that's hard. I mean, we're never going to get to that point. It doesn't make sense for us to either, of course. But there's a lot of interest. I think the key thing that we're looking for is performance. And I mentioned with leading through changes as an example, like the relevant moment when we produced that was no longer present. It was our most popular show, it was our most watched show. But every once in a while you gotta prioritize. And so we moved on from that show. And performance will will be the name of the game here. If something performs well for us, we'll keep doing it. If not, then it won't. It's very simple for us.
Well, actually, that goes to another question. So you have some naturals like Leah, who's just a natural in everything, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot better than her out there, really. And but then you don't always have naturals to do these things. I've watched some of the earlier shows, and let's say some of it wasn't natural. It wasn't bad. It was just there are people who are not totally comfortable in front of a camera. They have all the content in the world. They're brilliant. But that doesn't mean you're good in front of a camera, right? And so how do you even determine, okay, so there's two things, right? On the one hand, you'll have the I don't know what to call them, the alliances with Pivot and things like that, syndication or joint partnerships with Pivot, let's say. Mm-hmm. And you have people who are already accomplished in front of camera and know how to do all that stuff. Then you have your internal people like Leah. And then you'll have other people, though, like other shows where you may not have anyone internally to do it. Do you try to find an internal person to train? Do you go outside and find, talent of some kind? I mean, what do you do when you've got a great idea for the show, but you don't necessarily have the person or people who can run the show? How do you handle it?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's situational dependent, I think, in many ways too. For example, we're producing, just a hint, not now that we're producing a show now, but it hasn't been announced, but called Salesforce on Salesforce. which is just an opportunity to show how we use Salesforce in a really like lighthearted way, and just talk about the lessons we learned. Very humble way that here's the mistakes we made. Don't make those same mistakes. Here's a guiding. And those types of shows, authenticity wins over presence and production value all day long.
Right.
So like that, it's gonna be a little janky sometimes, but we're okay with that. And because the authenticity matters, we see that with like Dreamforce speakers. We have a pretty large database of lots of speakers coming in front of on stage at Dreamforce or whatever these things may look like. And it's often when you see the scores, the most polished presenters are not always the ones that score the best.
Oh yeah,
it's the ones that have the knowledge base and that show up authentically and things like this that really win the day. And so I think we look at all of that. I think at certain moments, like having an MC, we've got Leah McCowan-Hare, who's a wonderful friend of mine and a great colleague and a wonderful presenter. We've also brought in folks like Soledad O'Brien, and Soledad O'Brien was our MC at Dreamforce this past year and just did a fantastic job. And so you'll see, I don't think there's a silver bullet here. I think it's going to be kind of situational dependent. But authenticity is something we watch very closely.
I'm making a pitch for you to bring Charlie Isaac into a show somehow.
He's a great dancer. Charlie, we'll let him dance, but I don't know if we'll give him the microphone.
By the way, Charlie, I know one of the shows, Emmanuel Acho was kind of doing that hosting thing, which you guys have done a really interesting job of mixing up, folks that are, well-known versus folks that are not, that are most internal. I'll go back to the Salesforce on Salesforce. I think it was my very first Dreamforce, which is about 2004. Oh my God, that was 18 years ago. Jesus.
You're old. You're
when I was 4.
When you were venerable. Now you're venerable.
Yeah. Oh God. So the session I remember most, I think it was the first year they did a Salesforce on Salesforce event where they were talking about, this is from a marketing automation perspective. People were lined up outside the room for that. So I can just imagine what the interest level is going to be for a Salesforce on Salesforce show, because particularly folks that are business oriented, they want to know what you guys did that they can do themselves to be Salesforce 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Right.
So I think that's an awesome idea. But we did have a couple of questions, and maybe we need to end it on this because they're kind of the same. Alan said, damn, these questions started coming in. How do you measure success? And that kind of goes back to what Scott was asking about. Highlight key KPIs again.
Yeah, good questions. So a couple things. One of them is audience. And so, we're entering into a cookieless future. The way we've the way we've marketed in the past will no longer work in the future. And so for us, it's all about building first party data and a first party audience to be able to welcome people into the tent, help them understand Salesforce. And if they're ready to move down the funnel and buy more products from us, we'll be ready to do that, of course. But we want to do so with helpful and humble content that helps us at the top of the funnel. So first and foremost is just subscribers. As with anything, we're not charging a fee for Salesforce Plus. That is a fully free thing for us. All we ask is you sign up for what we call a Trailblazer ID, which is an identity service that gives you access to Trailhead and the Trailblazer community and Salesforce Plus and the App Exchange and everything you need, the best parts of Salesforce, if you will. And so first and foremost, it's an audience goal. And so I have a metric on what we call our V2 Mom, which I'm sure you both are familiar with, which is our sort of business plan, if you will. And so it's really audience first. We're also looking at things like monthly active users and daily active users and people returning to view similar content and the popularity of shows and the watch time of those shows and things that you would expect. And we're doing all of those things, but it all comes down to audience.
Amazing. It's absolutely amazing what you've done. It really is. Congratulations. I expected you to be successful because I just did, really. I mean, it was like it was sort of given to me you would be. But you've actually even come further than I even expected in 6 months. It's like astounding how the level of sophistication, the thinking that went into you remember the original times when we were talking, it was like Salesforce and industry, Salesforce and this. Yeah. I mean, it's very specific and very focused on things Salesforce itself, provides.
Yeah.
This is your scope is just broadened enormously, and at the same time, I think done pretty much everything you could possibly do in 6 months and then some. So congrats on just what I think is just becoming outstanding.
Absolutely. And by
We're
the way,
excited. Go ahead, Brent.
I was just going to say, Ann Chen is gently reminding me that we have to let you go because you have other things to do besides talk to us. So we want to make sure we get you on your way.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. It was great to see you. I hope to see you in another 6 months when we won some Emmys, maybe. But don't forget, Trailblazer DX. We want to see you on Trailblazer DX. That's our developer conference, of course. We've never done anything like this. You're going to see that. We've got Connections coming up in May as well, and then Dreamforce in September. So hope to see you all there.
We will be
there.
Well, we might actually be at some of these, but we will otherwise be watching.
Well, we'll have to connect in person for the first time.
You got it. That would be amazing.
All right, man. Thanks
All right,
again
my
for your
friend.
time, man.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.
That was a great update.
Amazing. I have to tell you, I'm genuinely, I'm not saying that just to be nice to a guest. I am genuinely amazed and excited about how far they've come. I did not expect that level of evolution that quickly.
When I went to Salesforce Plus a couple of months ago, and then when I went back last night, I almost thought it was a completely different entity.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that much progress. And like I said, I looked at a number of these episodes for the different kinds of shows, and I was so impressed with not only the way they looked and sounded, but the themes, the different people that were participating. And I'll just go back to this again, because this is something personally I've always been interested in. It wasn't that they just had content that was catered to a certain audience, like, Black professionals, but they'd had that. But what I really liked was immersing underrepresented folks into the core content, the core themes. The Ecopreneur guy talking about healing old buildings. That was really cool, and I'm glad to see it. And I really look forward to our next 6 months and seeing where things are and getting a chance to talk to Colin. By then, he'll probably be president, because every time he talks to us, his role gets bumped up.
You know what we could do? I have an idea then. Let's talk to him relatively frequently. So by let's say the latest time, he's president of the United States. We'll work on it that way.
Note. Yeah, okay. We could. That'd be good with me. All right. Wow, that hour went really fast.
Unbelievably fast.
All right.
It was great. It was just great. I'm so impressed.
And we do have. Make sure I have this. Make sure I have this straight. Yes, I think I have it. We do have a new picture to end our shows on. So, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Playaz. And look at Minnie.
Whoa. Oh, God. Now you just have to leave it up for the next 20 years.
That's smiling Minnie.
Minnie's watching your show, though, live with Brent Leary.
Wait a minute. How did that happen?
I have no idea, but it changed the logo.
All right. And on that note, we'll see you next week.